All right, so you watched the last like 10 minutes of the last video in order to get to the domain shit. Then check this out.
All right, so I'm gonna go through step one. We're
It's
gonna figure out
very
what
weird.
attributes you have access to no matter what deckmaster you're looking at. So let's say you've got a deckmaster and you're looking at it. The first thing you gotta do is look at its printed attribute, and then you need to check its text box for any other attributes that it references. Any attributes you discover this way, you have access to. So I'm gonna use a specific example. I'm gonna say Chaos Sorcerer. Let's take a look at Chaos Sorcerer. He is dark,
Okay.
and in his card text box, he references light monsters. So if Chaos Sorcerer was your deckmaster, you would have access to all light monsters and all
dark monsters.
Not
Good.
one or the other. You can play both within your deckmaster deck. All right, pretty straightforward. Next up is monster types. This is very
Okay.
similar. You look at your deckmaster, you look at its printed monster type, you look in its card text box for any other monster types. Any monster types that you identify this way with this process, you have access to those monster types in your domain deck without having to worry about the attributes of that monster. So I'm gonna use another example. Let's say Blue Dragon Summoner. Real quick, I'm gonna go to step one.
Yeah.
So is this the deck master then? Because this would explain fucking everything.
So the deck master is Blue Summoner Dragon
I think it might be.
because it references dragons.
Warriors and spellcasters, which is dragons, dragons, spellcasters, warriors. These are all dragon spellcasters and warriors. So are these. That explains all the monsters.
Is there a wind attribute in there that also would matter?
I don't see one.
Okay. I guess. My god, that's so fucking stupid. That's so many rules to take into account for literally. Like, it sounds fun. Don't get me wrong. That just sounds stupid if you could be like, oh yeah, Blue Dragon Summoner. Any blue monster in the game can be played now. Like.
He references no other attributes in his text box. So to start off with, we have access to all wind monsters, and using the same process from step 2, he is a spellcaster, and in his text box he references dragon monsters and warrior monsters. That means on top of all wind monsters, you could play any warrior monster without worrying about its attribute or archetypes. You can play any spellcaster without worrying about its attribute or archetypes, and you can play any dragon monster without worrying about its attribute or archetypes. And again, you don't have to pick one or the other. You would have access to all of those monsters all within the same deck. So that means you could have a fire spellcaster because it is a spellcaster and you have access to spellcasters. You could play a wind machine monster because it is wind and you have access to wind monsters. Starting to click now, right? There's one last
Okay.
figuring out your deckmaster's archetypes. So I'm going to use the domain format Discord's definition of archetype because it's in the rules, so that's just what I'm going to be referencing. An archetype is a group of cards that share a descriptive word or string of words in their name, not counting conjunctions, adverbs, or punctuation. Now, this one's probably the most complicated, but I've talked extensively with the mods in the domain Discord format. I understand it quite well. I feel comfortable enough explaining it to you guys. All right, so the first step for figuring out your deckmaster's available archetypes, you got to look at its name, but you also got to check the monster's text box for any words that are in quotations. So I'm going to use an
Blue
example.
Summoner is part of the Summoner archetype.
Skull in his title.
Yeah.
Also check his text box. He has reminder text saying that he's always treated as an archfiend. And because archfiend is in quotations, that's considered also part of his domain for archetypes. Now, what does that mean exactly? It means that you could play any other monster with summoned, skull, archfiend in the title of the monster. Now, this is where it gets pretty complicated, so I'm going to give you an example for each one of those words. All right, so there's no real good example for summoned because there's summoned skull and then tomb summoned skull. Those are the only monsters with summoned in their name. But you can break summoned down into summon. So because of that, you could play Blue Dragon Summoner in your summoned skull.
Or Summoner Monk.
Summoned skull was your deckmaster because they both have summon in their title.
This is a word game.
Yeah.
In his title, which means you can play any monster with skull in its title as well. Example, skull marked ladybug. They don't have any similar types or attributes, but because they both have
If
summon,
anything, this makes like Elemental Heroes like a super easy pick.
Yeah, I pick Avion as my deck master.
Why would I pick Avion? I could just pick Blazeman, who references the fact that you could change its ability to one in the deck, meaning literally any attribute can be played.
in your summon skull domain deck. Now, because Archfiend is in parentheses, that's also included.
The only limitation's like Warrior.
Title, like Archfiend, Marmot of Nefariousness, they don't share types, they don't share attributes, but you could play it because it has Archfiend in its title, and Summon Skull is treated as an Archfiend card. Now, you can break Archfiend down into Arch and Fiend. So, in your Summon Skull deck, you could play Arch Nemesis Ascados. Because
Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, what the
Hang
fuck?
on a second.
Now that's...
You can play Arch monsters in your Summon Skull. Now, I specifically Summon Skull because I want to talk about this. This kind of confuses some people. In this third step, I am not talking about types or attributes. Now, Fiend is part of Summon Skull's domain for archetypes. This specifically means monsters with Fiend in the title, not Fiend-type monsters. He's already a Fiend, obviously, right? But if he wasn't, you wouldn't all of a sudden gain access to all Fiend monsters just because the word Fiend is in his archetype. When we're discussing archetypes, we're just talking about titles of monsters. So, for example, in your Summon Skull deck, you could play Subterror Fiend S because But she has female
Ah.
title, and they don't share a type or attribute with some. Okay, some more. I really just want to hammer this point home, so I'm also going to bring up something like Dark Witch. It's a light fairy, and its archetypes that it's allowed to play are Dark and Witch, meaning you can play any monster with the word Dark in its title, not Dark attribute monsters, but Dark in the title, and you can play any monster with Witch in the title, even if it doesn't match the attribute or type with Dark Witch. So as an example with Dark Witch, you could run Sea Serpent Warrior of Darkness. Now that's ridiculous. Like you, I'm trying to be ridiculous here with these examples, but I'm just trying to paint a clear picture. If Dark Witch was your domain, your deckmaster, you could run Sea Serpent Warrior of Darkness because they share the word Dark in their title. Conversely, you also don't get access to monster types. Let's use Shadal Beast. If Shadal Beast was your deckmaster, you could play Dark monsters, you could play Spellcaster monsters, and its archetype is Shadal Beast, not Beast monsters, just monsters with Beast in the name. So to think of another ridiculous example, in your Shadal Beast, this hypothetical Shadal Beast domain deck, you could play Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon. They don't share the type, but they both have Beast in them. It's very important to keep the types and
Or
attributes
any
separate
Crystal
from the
Beast at
archetype.
that point.
You don't find types and attributes in archetypes, and you don't find archetypes in types and attributes. I really hope that makes sense. And another really important thing to keep in mind that some people have gotten mixed up on, all this checking card text and everything, you only ever do that with the deckmaster. You don't check cards that you want to play in your deck for available archetypes or whatever. I'll give you a specific example. We'll take Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous again. If she was your deckmaster, you could play Fallen of Albaz in your deck because Fallen of Albaz is within Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous's domain. If Fallen of Albaz was your deckmaster, you would not be able to play Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous because
it doesn't listen.
Fallen
Yeah.
of Albaz's domain. Even though Incredible Ecclesia specifically references Fallen of Albaz, you would not be able to play her within the Fallen of Albaz deck because you only look at Fallen of Albaz
So
to
yeah,
check for types, attributes, and archetypes.
Select your deck master
I hope that clears that up for people
carefully
wondering.
while
Alright,
playing
so I actually kind of feel
archetype.
there's one last thing that you need to check
Like an actual
that fits
archetype.
within deckmaster.
Yeah,
And that is
so-
deckmaster references a specific attack and defense combination within its card text. It's very important that you
Okay.
both attack and defense referenced together. So I will use a specific example for this. Let's take Adia the Heavenly Squire. So let's look at this card and figure out its domain. It is a light monster. It doesn't reference any other attributes, so we have access to light. She is a warrior, but doesn't reference any other types in her text, so she has access to warrior. Which she was your
It
deckmaster.
does mention
The word
Monarch.
is in parentheses in her text, so she has access to that archetype along with the ones in her title, which is Squire Heavenly. But she also has
Heaven.
a reference to a very specific attack and defense combination: 800 attack and 1,000 defense. This is also within her domain. That being any monster with 800 attack and 1,000 defense. Now, for those of you familiar with the archetype, that means all of there's one more Squire, Eidos, and then which has. I mean, you can play Eidos anyway because they both have Squire. In
There
them,
are
but
more
it's, the
than
vassals
those
specifically
two.
that were designed to be.
They're
to
called
work with monarchs.
vassals.
So she has access to any monster with 800 attack and 1,000 defense, which is mostly the vassals. There's not too many instances of this being important, so it's not all that reference. It's not all that reference. The one
A domain
monarch
monarch deck would actually be fun because you get to play all the vassals.
which would be important if he was your deckmaster.
It would be
But
needed to
lastly,
play all the
spells and
vassals
traps
because
do
you
not
need to
care
play one of
about-
each
Yeah.
monarch
not
at that
restricted by
point.
domains whatsoever. You can play any spell and any trap in any deck, no matter who the deckmaster is. It doesn't matter if the spell or trap makes tokens or becomes a monster. You don't have to worry about the types and attributes listed in those cards. Also, divine attribute monsters are not restricted by deckmaster domains. They're too powerful to be held back, which means you can run divine attribute monsters
Oh.
in any domain deck. Doesn't matter who the deckmaster is. You can run
Cool.
They're
That's-
not a monster. They're a god.
That's cool. I like that. They finally made divine like remotely cool to use. That's funny.
This mainly means that everybody's gonna be running Sphere Mode, just so you know.
Oh.
Alright, so that is how you figure out domain. This last thing I gotta say about domain is what is not involved with the domain. What does not matter when it comes to figuring out domains. The card itself, its attack and defense don't matter. If Dark Magician's your deckmaster, you can't just run any monster with 2,500 attack or whatever defense. The level, rank, and link rating does not matter. If you pick a Link 2 as your deckmaster, you don't have access to all Link 2 monsters. If you have a rank 4 Xyz monster as your deckmaster,
Don't have
you
access to all
rank
like
4.
fours.
If your deckmaster
Yeah.
is a level 5, you don't have access to all level 5 monsters. And lastly, we talked a lot about monster types, but something that is not included or worried about in domains are monster card types. Things like normal, effect, flip, tuner, pendulum, Gemini, union, spirit. Those
Okay.
are not considered in domains. Same thing with extra deck monsters like fusion, synchro, Xyz, and link. None of
What
those things
about
matter when it
tune?
comes to figuring out a domain. Just go through steps 1 through 3. You'll be able to figure out exactly what you're allowed to play in your domain deck.
I guess you'd have to select your deck master to be a card that
Now, let's talk about the other thing. I get a lot of naysayers.
mentions
I approach a lot of people about
tunes.
this, and a lot of them say, how does Yu-Gi-Oh work 4-player? How does it work multiplayer? It doesn't, right? Wrong. Domain format was designed to support any number of players, however many you're willing to
Okay,
play.
finally, this is the part I'm
Any
genuinely
number.
interested
Four
in.
players. A few of them have been 3-player just because we didn't have a 4th, and a few of them have been 5 players just because we didn't want that 5th person sitting around doing nothing, right? We want to include them in the game. And if you want to play this 1v1, go for it. That's the honestly the coolest thing about this format is it can support any number of players, and you can also even like subcategorize this into other subgenres. Like you can play GOAT domain format, Edison domain.
Ooh,
whatever.
ooh,
Cutthroat 1v1,
Edison's
French
fun.
domain format, or dual domain, right? Or this could be something that a lot of the casual players gravitate towards and play in 4-player pods, right? If you're worried about how the game operates in multiplayer, believe me, the guys in the domain format Discord have thought a lot about how cards should work in multiplayer, and they plan on making it so that cards can work no matter how many players there are. But I'm gonna go through some of the things that
They would have rules on fucking Miracle.
Yes, this is the whole reason I'm interested in this. When I saw that it was allowed to be 4 players, I was like, Woo!
It's gonna be random,
And
going to randomize
sword-
two.
and sword
this is a big
reveal
one.
life.
Columns. If there are more
Yeah.
than 2 players, you need to pair up as many players as possible with one person in front of them. If there's an odd person out, they're not facing anybody as far as like directly in their as far as their columns and their extra deck monsters pointing. So your columns are going to be lining up with one person. Let's use an example of a 4-player game. Your columns are going to be lining up with one person. You're going to be using the 2 extra deck monster zones, right? If you take one, your opponent gets the other, or the person in front of you gets the other. Now with this setup, your columns are only ever going to line up with that one player, and your monsters or your link monsters are only ever going to point to each other's monsters with that one player. The other 2 players in this game, their columns are going to be lined up. Their monsters are going to be pointing at each other. At no point during that game are either of those 2.
Watch this. If I'm calling it now. If one player gets eliminated, or 2 players get eliminated, right? It would be these 2 players' columns now matter.
Players going to have a chance to be in either aligned with either of your columns, and their link monsters are never going to point at your monsters. Now realize that this probably means that column mechanics are going to suffer, but you can't simultaneously face 3 opponents with columns and link arrows and all that stuff. It's the most elegant solution. You just start the game facing one player. That person aligns up with your columns. The other 2 people in the game are never going to align with your columns or point to your monsters.
I found the ruling in 4 players for Mirror Force.
Does it destroy all monsters?
No, it does not.
Damn it.
Have no one in front of you. Even if, say, you
This is
eliminate
what
a
it
player
does right
in front
here.
of you,
Okay, yeah, let me switch screens.
If player 1 attacks player B, you can activate Mirror Force, destroying player 1's field to save B.
Oh.
Even if you're not the one being attacked. As if an attack's declared on anyone, you can activate Mirror Force. Except for you, who controls Mirror Force, blah blah. But you could save some. But you could save, like, if you're like in a partner thing, you could save your partner's field with your Mirror Force, and then the person whoever is attacked is
gets
the,
the
person who
only
gets-
mirror forced. Okay.
Yes. Hold on. Let's see. Sword of revealing light.
I bet it's gonna say that you can't attack that person. Little wall of revealing light and 150 ring of destruction type effects.
Swords of okay, no. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe this dude will talk about it.
Maybe that'll be his example.
and one of the other 2 players get eliminated, you're not going to rearrange your orientation so that you're facing each other.
I was wrong? You don't get to orient. Okay, cool. Their columns are just gone.
Activating the same extra deck monster zone. So honestly, this is the most elegant solution, and it creates no additional problems. To be honest, I think it's a good solution. That's how columns work in domain format. If there are more than 2 players, whoever goes first gets to draw a card in their draw step. That is, and a very important thing to note: whoever is last in turn order. In my 4-player example, let's say player number 4 will be the first person to get a battle phase. This means no one can get attacked without first setting up a board, without first getting the chance.
So
to set
we
up a board.
have been
And when a lot
doing
of
that right.
Yeah, at least that's true.
people hear this, they think that, player 1 takes a turn, player 2 takes their turn, player 3 takes their turn. Player 4 is the first one to get a battle phase. They could just attack player 3, then player 1 could attack player 3, then player 2 could attack player 3. While this could happen, this doesn't ever happen in the casual games that I've played. We're there to have fun. Typically, people go after whoever's in the lead, which changes multiple times throughout the game.
Yeah.
So they've decided
That's always happened.
And the way you figure out priority sequences is whoever the turn player is, they have priority.
Yeah,
and then it goes
Jaden is
turn
one of
order.
the
And
most
last
life
component of-
points, so.
Yugi has 2 stocks. We gotta eliminate. Fucking.
Is that there's a lot of erratas that they have made, and they don't change power level of cards. It's just to make sure that cards function in multiplayer. So I'm gonna put up the graphic they have for the.
Okay. Targets Regeki. Destroys all monsters your opponent controls. Domain. Target one opponent and destroy all monsters they control. Okay. That's fine. Dangerous Machine Type 6. Original use. Discard 1 card.
During each of our. Oh, okay, wait. Original.
Domain.
Okay, what's the difference?
Make discard 1 card stays. Make an opponent discard 1 card.
Okay.
Draw 1 card. Make an opponent draw 1 card. Only one. That is hilarious. Not everyone mean. Oh, Mirror Force. When opponent's monster attacks, destroy all your opponent's monsters. When an opponent's monster
attacks,
destroy that player's monsters.
That player controls.
Yeah. Neither becomes
player.
no player. Each player
Each
becomes
player.
both players.
Or
becomes
each
all.
or both. Which means switcheroo.
Oh my god, this is... Creature swap means everyone swaps! That's so cool! That's great! That's funny. I'm glad... So change of heart means that you can only target one player's monsters too, which is really limiting, and I like that. That's more balanced. Instead of, oh yeah, change of heart, I take everyone one monster.
Yeah. So each player is all players, and your opponent is target opponent. That's all we really need to know.
Oh, wait. So let's simplify. Watch, I can simplify swords real quick. Watch this. Okay, so swords. Let's go here. Swords are revealing light after this card's activation. When this card is activated, if your opponent controls a face-down monster, while this card is face up on the field, your opponent monsters cannot declare an attack. I think it refers to everyone at that point. No one gets to attack. Because your opponents would refer to a singular.
End phase of your opponent's third turn would count everyone, meaning it's one full rotation.
One full rotation. Exactly. So it's actually way more nerfed to run Swords of Revealing Light now. Instead of just... That... Damn. That sucks. We're just reviewing a format for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because we're nerds.
Oh, there I am.
Huh?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, it said it was connecting.
We're just reviewing a format because we're nerds.
Okay. So I saw y'all were live, and I was like, are they doing like a secret thing?
No.
The rules in the domain Discord so that you can look it over if you would like.
We're
way to
just
explain this is that most cards that
figuring out how four-player Yu-Gi-Oh works.
You're usually targeting an opponent.
From the
Like,
fans.
you would destroy one of your opponent's monsters, whereas Dark Hole would destroy all monsters on the field, which includes all 4 players' monsters because there's 4 players that can see the field now.
Oh, fuck, Dark Hole is a nuke. That's rough.
Feather Duster would destroy
Oh
one
my
opponent's back
God.
row, whereas Heavy Storm would destroy everybody's back row.
Okay.
And another important thing that I think helps out a lot of players is if you're activating an effect that had a requirement to be met by an opponent, you have to target them with the card because they met the requirement. So, example, Mirror Force. If player 1 attacks player 2 and player 2 activates Mirror Force, he would then have to target the player 1 with that Mirror Force. He wouldn't be able to just say, screw player 3, I'm going to target player 3 with my Mirror Force, even though player 1 attacked. That doesn't seem to be fair, so this is how they've decided it's best to resolve effects that have requirements to be met by an opponent. And then lastly, it's important to differentiate between activated effects and continuous effects that involve your opponents. So I'm going to use an example. So for a continuous effect, let's use Wallow, founder of the Drudge Dragons, as an example.
What the
He says,
fuck?
monsters you control gain 100 attack and defense for each card in your opponent's graveyard. Now, this is a continuous
2 level 6 monsters. Damn it.
effect, and because it's a continuous effect, it considers each opponent in that equation. So you would count all the monsters in each of your opponent's graveyards to figure out the buff that your monsters would be getting.
Oh my
Now, compare
God.
that to a similar effect, but one that is an activated effect, such as Odd Eye's Venom Dragon's Pendulum effect. It says once per turn, you can target one of your fusion monsters. It gains 1,000 attack for each monster your opponent controls. Because this is an activated effect, you would have to target an opponent and count their resources. You wouldn't just count each opponent's
Okay.
resources, specifically because this is an activated ability. Now, I'm no rules judge about Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever, but there's a reason these guys have separated it this way, and it seems to be work out really well. It seems very intuitive once you know those distinctions. Those are honestly, I think, the most common things that come up with trying to figure out how things work in multiplayer. If you have questions about how a card works in multiplayer, don't feel bad. You can go to the Discord and go to the rules question section and give us that example. You can search with the bot in there, show us the card. The mods will tell you exactly how a card works in multiplayer. All right. I think that is it. I think that is everything you need to know to figure out how to play domain format, how to build your own deck, how to figure out your deckmaster's domain so that you can build a deck. Most of the generic stuff that you would need to know to play a 4-player game with your friends and figure out how things work. This format has so many strengths over everything else that is played in current Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's not to throw shade at anybody. That's not to say that, like, you know, whatever format you like sucks. I'm not saying that. I just personally think that this format has strengths that other formats don't have. And that is, like, because of the singleton nature, because the restrictions that having a domain has on your deck building, and even picking your deckmaster, it's much more involved in the deck building process. And honestly, it's just like, it's a deck builder's paradise. If you like building decks, if you like brewing, if you like finding interesting interactions, this is the format to...
Shit. Now I think about it, if you pick, like, Blaze Master or Blaze Man for the thing, it's only one copy of each card, so you wouldn't be able to run another copy of Blaze Man in your deck anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
or you do Stratos, and now you have access to all. Well, you would have already because you can break down Elemental Hero to its element in Hero, but
yeah,
Stratos would also be a good one.
I wouldn't. The thing is I wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want to pick any of those because they're needed in the deck more so than anything.
Then just do Avion.
Avion would be the easiest to pick because he's just the worst.
I was right.
But in reality, I think I would choose like Blade Edge because he's not needed for anything. And Blade Edge
We
still
can also
refers
bring
to...
him out. And piercing battle damage.
Yeah, but then I can also run like Earth monsters like Block Dragon for funnies. Pretty certain there's a way to make that work. That's weird. I don't hate that format though. I would definitely want to try it, but like the easiest way for us to do that would be
No. The best deck master is Neos, because that gives you access to elemental to heroes and Neos cards.
At that point I would pick Elemental Hero Neos Alias. He's normal summonable. He refers to Neospatians in his name. He counts as Elemental Hero Neos, which would then refer back.
Nope. I found it. Crosskeeper mentions Elemental Hero and Neospatian in its card text, and it also would allow you to play other things. Or you do Armed Neos, and now you get to play Armed Dragon. Because otherwise you would not be able to.
Oh my god. Yeah.
This also means you would have to do Rainbow Neos, and if you wanted to play Rainbow Neos, and the Ubel one if you wanted to do Ubel.
Well, no, because Neos Wiseman refers to... shit. Neospatians, kind of. It has Neos in the breakdown of its name. So... it's either Alias or Cross... the Link monster that you talked about.
It's a main deck monster.
It is?
Crosskeeper. It's also a dark warrior. And it has Keeper in the name, so you could, if you wanted to, Keeper of Dragon Magic.
Oh. What the fuck is this card?
What, Crosskeeper?
Yeah, I've never seen this card before. You can send
It came out with when Spirit of Neos came out.
Oh. You can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, special summon Elemental Hero Neos or a Neospatian monster from your hand or graveyard, but negate its effects. If the if summoned from the graveyard, if you special summon Elemental Hero Fusion while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can banish this card, draw 2 cards, then place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. You can only use cross. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be using the deck master for like anything, but
Yeah,
its effects are hand and graveyard, but it gives you access to all those and unique cool things like Keeper of Dragon Magic.
yeah, that's a rough format to work with. It's better than Limit 1 though.
You can also do Contrast Hero Chaos because it mentions Masked Heroes and Elemental Heroes. Well, no, it's still Heroes, so you still get access to all those. So that's still, but I mean, he would still be like a cool deck master.
Yeah, that is a rough format to work with. But it also means heroes kind of die because there's only like 1 poly. You need like fusion recovery all the time.
That would be why that one deck has that field spell Fusion Recycling Plant.
Yeah, so you could just keep fusion summoning. Damn, that's a weird deck. That's a weird rule set.
Mm-hmm.
Though it could make Shadal heroes really funny. How would I make
How are you
Shadal
gonna play
heroes?
Shadal Heroes? What deck master would you?
That's a
Because
good question.
if you pick a Shadal one, you're locked into an attribute and typing that do not cross with heroes. Or if you pick a hero one, you're limited on your Shadals to only the warriors.
See, here's what
If
you...
there are
Oh,
any.
damn it. I just realized the extra deck isn't filled with spellcasters. It's actually filled with, like, a lot of things. Could you run King of the Swamp and then as your deck master, and then it would count for fusions and everything? Or
I don't think it would. I think it would just allow you to play. Well,
water,
water and whatever.
mud cards.
Muddy
King
Mud Dragon
card.
of the Swamp is now my deck master.
I can play any fusion monster. That's a really rough format.
That is why that deck looked like A's.
Does explain a bunch. Damn. That is a challenge.